Hello, everyone. My name is Megna. I'm the marketing lead at SGDA, and we would like to welcome you to the art panel for this year's summit of 2026. First off, we're going to start off with introductions and have our lovely panelists Zainab and Tim introduce themselves, and then we'll go into questions. So, yeah, either one of you can start.
Okay, I can go. Hello, everyone. My name is Zainab. I am a 3D environment and prop artist, specifically specializing in the stylized world. Currently, I am freelancing, and as we go through the meeting, I'll talk more about my journey and how I got here.
And yeah, I'll go. Hi, I'm Timothy. I currently work as a technical artist for Refactor Games. And it's a lot of scripting and tooling, but I mainly do a lot of support work for artists in my team. But it's also a lot of shader work, so I don't know if anyone's interested in that too. You ask me.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you guys. So first question is, how did you guys end up working in games and the game industry or in adjacent industries in your field? Was it always something that you wanted to pursue or something that you stumbled into?
Yeah,
Um,
oh,
no, no, go ahead. No, go ahead. Yeah.
okay. Well, I'd say I kind of always really wanted to be in games. As a kid, played a lot of video games. And then I guess I went to college at USC, and there was just a whole dedicated games program. And it's just really nice to be able to, for me, it was really nice to be able to like kind of form a network with people, and be able to just like, have like a one track for just games and like technical stuff and like art stuff. And that's kind of how I got here, basically. Um, so yeah.
Um, so for me, I went to Rhode Island School of Design and I was an illustration major. So I started out as more of like a painter and an illustrator, but I also really love 3D because I did that a lot just like outside of my schoolwork. So then eventually I was like, I discovered the stylized 3D realm where you take 3D and it looks so painterly in 2D. And I fell in love with it. I started experimenting with it. And then what broke me into the video game industry is I did internship at Riot with Megna actually in 2024. So that's kind of what got me into the industry. And then um, I've been going, I've been working from there and yeah,
And it must be like a cool pipeline, right? Like, I mean, you get from just like the whole 3D realm and like just I feel like there's kind of like a renaissance in terms of like 3D and like animation and just like also in games, it's just so much opportunities there, I feel like. That's cool.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I do love that both of you guys had very kind of like very similar but also very different ways that you got into games, whether that be through like always wanting to be there or kind of almost going through it after discovering something new. Awesome. So I guess this is kind of related to that. How did you figure out what type of art or job position you wanted to pursue? Because obviously 3D environment, as Zaina mentioned, you were started in illustration, then went into 3D environment, and then Tim, you're also a technical artist, which is, I imagine, a lot different to kind of start out in too.
Yeah, I can go. So I was actually a CS major in college. But I always wanted to do art and I guess I did art a lot when I was in high school. I drew and all that. Um and I had like a drawing tablet and I did a lot of digital art, a lot of graphic design. Um I was kind of looking for something that was kind of like like the marriage between like the technical stuff and the art stuff because I love math, I love coding and all that, but I also love art. And I love like how, you know, you I just love like how you can like make these like like any kind of like the whole like 3D pipeline and suite and all that. It's just like also fascinating to me. So that's kind of why I went towards tech like a technical art track. Um and yeah, it was interesting because I thought I would be doing a lot more art when I got into the industry. And there was a bit of that. Yeah, I was like making grass shaders, water shaders, and all that. And it was fun because it's art. You get to see like really cool shaders and really flowing water, moving grass, snow. Very fun. But then I think I also kind of learned a lot that a lot of it was also just like supporting the other artists in my team, and making sure that their life is easier, basically in the industry. And I found that that was actually pretty fun to do because you also get to talk with them, brainstorm with them, and be like, how do we make this pipeline work, and how do we, basically get the art into the game that the artists have made, like real, yeah. And yeah, that's how I got into technical art.
Um, Similar to Tim's story, for me it was like instead of like merging like the super technical with like my love for art, it was merging like my love for 3D and my love for 2D. That kind of brought me into like the stylized 3D world. Um, and originally, and I think a lot of art students when they're in school, you want to be a concept artist. You're like, I want to do really cool like illustrations of environments and stuff like that. But I think what I realized with time is like getting into concept art is incredibly difficult. Not impossible. It's incredibly difficult because usually companies have like for every team, maybe max like 3 to 5 uh concept artists. So I was like, okay, well, I want to work in this industry because I love video games, but I love the 2D, but I also have this love for 3D. So it was kind of like I had to improvise and find a way where I can bring these skills that I had and find like an opening for that in the market. Because the truth is, like, you know, the market is really hard to get into. I mean, especially right now, and you kind of have to be aware of that. And it's not about like crushing what you want to do, but it's like, how can I be like creative about bringing these things that I love to do, but make myself useful in a different way for these companies because that is a really good way to break in. And actually, one of the things that um, I heard when I was at Riot, I don't know, if maybe you were there, but Sam was telling us, one of the recruiters at Riot, she was like, there's a lot of positions that people don't think a lot about, like stuff like motion graphics or 3D. And she was like, people underestimate like how many positions there are out there for these kinds of things because students are usually like, I want to do illustration and I want to do concept art. But a lot of these other roles use practically the same skills. You're just applying them in a different way. So that's kind of how I found my way into like the 3D world. And I think I definitely have had more luck with that than if I were to just do like illustration.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I really relate to both of what you were saying about kind of like there is definitely so many different types of art out there and so many different positions. And even actually like at work yesterday, me and my manager were talking about how we don't have a technical we don't have a technical artist on our team and how much of like that position itself is also quite like it's very unique and not many people know about it. And the same with like motion design and obviously what Sam said of like there's so many different roles that are kind of like is undiscovered among students. So that's pretty cool to hear from you guys. Thank you. So this one's kind of a more fun one. So this could also relate to either stuff that you worked in school or like currently in industry. But how does your approach to art change with the genre or the project that you're working on?
Okay, I can go. So my like the projects I've worked on are kind of like all over the place. Like I interned at Riot in 2024, and then I went and worked at NASA last year and did a bunch of like stylized models for them. And then I've like contracted for some like animation companies, and then I'm also like freelancing. So I'm having to constantly change my style. And a lot of the times it's like like really understanding like what that person wants or like what that company's looking for, but there's also a reason why they like hired you because they like your style. So you it's about like taking what you do well and then you also try to fuse like their style or what they're known for, like how they want to be represented into yours. And then that's how you get something that's like super unique. That's like been my experience. And it's super fun. I personally, and this is just like a preference, I typically don't work in places that are like, realistic or something like that, because that's just not my style. And I don't think I would like it very much. So I try, whatever I do, I try to find things that's within my realm of style, but that also does push me and, allows me to apply it in different ways.
I'd say for me, it's a little bit of the opposite. Like it's kind of rigid. I've been working on uh the today like this year's FIFA game and which released on Netflix. It's Netflix games. Um and it's very rigid. They want you to be to make like very do like a very realistic style. And yeah, I also really love that stylized style. I mean, you get to do a lot, right? You get to do a lot in like shader graph, and you make shaders, and you can make it as stylized as you want, and that's all very cool. Um, but sometimes you really have to just yeah, I gotta do this realistic style. I gotta learn like what the kind of like the look that the industry typically wants, like because I feel like there is kind of a trend towards this like unreal, hyper realistic look. I mean, we've seen the new trailer for like Unreal 6, and it's all very, it has everything in terms of like hyper realism. Um, that being said, I'd say that style wise, you can still try to kind of put your like little touches here and there. Even for me, who does like just the shader work and all that, like not everything has to be fully realistic. And you should talk to your whole team about or like regarding that like hey I think this and this could look better if we I don't know for example didn't put subsurface scattering or something something like that I don't know but yeah.
I also want to add something to that as well, because I completely agree with you with like certain things that the industry expects. And one thing that I've always told like people that have asked me about like how do you find your style or like what kind of art do you do is like you have to find your specialty because a lot of companies hire based on like, can you do the style that they want? Like all of the like opportunities that I've gotten is because they were looking for something very specific and I had that very specific thing. I think in a lot of schools is very much taught to like have as many skills as possible. And I don't disagree with that, but I also think it's really important to like find the look that you like that also companies want, and that is how you set yourself up for getting opportunities. I think when students are doing like, oh, here's one realistic piece, here's a slightly realistic one, here's also a stylized one, it can kind of come off as like you don't really have a consistent understanding of like the art that you're trying to go for, and that might not always be, you know, attractive to big companies. I think indie differs. There's more room for like trying different things, but for big companies, you're trying to work in AAA, they do look for very specific things. So yeah, I agree with Tim on that.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you guys. All right. Next question is a bit more of like kind of about working in the industry as a whole. Um, what is it? I think Zainab might have a little bit, what is it? A little bit more to say since I think you're currently working freelance right now as well. But how does being a freelance or self-employed artist differ from working in a studio? And then this can also apply to like how does it differ from being a student, like working on projects and then going to a studio immediately.
Okay, I can go. So I graduated last year. I graduated in May of 2025. So I haven't been outside of school for that long. So I've gone through a lot of shifts. Timeline wise, my first like professional opportunity was at Riot with Megna, the internship that we did summer 2024. And then I did a little bit of contracting for a company my senior year. And then after my senior year, from May to December of last year. That's when I was interning at NASA. And then right now I'm contracting for a indie studio that's working on like a Pixar short film. And then I'm also doing some freelance. So I've kind of gotten a taste of like a lot of different ways of working. I've done the 9 to 5. I've done the super unstable, like, you get things when you get things. And honestly, like sorry if you hear like lawnmower in the background. Someone's doing the yard outside. Um, but I think like my advice or like my experience with this way of working is like there's different ways about like putting yourself out there. I think when you're trying to get like a 9 to 5 or like you're trying to get like a stable job, it's kind of like what I was talking about earlier, where you have to um really have something that a company wants. Freelance, on the other hand, is like more about your style and then people picking you for your style. Like the contract position I'm doing right now for the indie film, I literally just posted on LinkedIn the work that I did for NASA. And because it was so painterly, they were like, we need a texture artist who can do these backgrounds for this film that we're making. So we don't have a necessary like we don't have a specific style. We just want the painterly look. So that's how I got that. So yeah, this was like a big circle that I don't know where the hell I was going with that. But my point is like it just depends on how you market yourself. If you're trying to get like a full-time job, you have to be very specific to what those companies want. If you want to go more into like the freelance side, it's about like getting more to social media, putting yourself out there. Yeah, almost being like your own, manager and really trying to post as much as possible, which I know is not the popular thing for artists. We all hate to put ourselves out there, but that's what I would recommend if you're trying to do more of that. Yeah.
Um, that's really cool. As for me, I know I haven't really been doing the freelance. I was an intern at my company, and then I got absorbed, and I've just been I've been here for a while now. But I will say I kind of work with a lot of outsourcing companies. Especially since like the volume of characters that we have to put into the game and all that. Um, there was a lot, so we needed outsourcing. And from what I could tell, like the like it's kind of like a separate track, it's not necessarily you're not necessarily like part of the company that makes the game or the development company that makes the game, but I'd say it's pretty stable in that it is another form of a stable job in that you get to work on different projects from what I've heard, as working with these outsourcing companies. And I'd also say that like if you're able to do kind of like different kinds of styles, like you can do the realistic and like the stylized style, that also kind of helps with the whole like the freelancing gig or sorry being part of this like whole outsourcing thing uh because that's what they want. They get like different projects but and I'm pretty sure that they also just like because some of the companies that I've worked with, they kind of like specialize. They also have like a very specific style. So I'm sure those companies also look for those kinds of people, but I'd always say that it's always good to diversify and like be able to do a lot of things.
Awesome. Such a great point with the outsourcing. I think that's also like connected to that one of those jobs that students don't necessarily know about, but it's like a great opportunity to not only like work with different companies, but then work amongst like different styles as well. Very cool. Thank you guys. All right. Kind of related to this, which is about the game industry again. Have you faced any challenges in the game industry, whether that be like finding a job or even like other issues, um, that like you would like to bring up and, discuss?
Yeah, I can go real quick. But yeah, for me it was really hard to find my first job. I graduated May of 2023, and it took me about like a year and a half before I actually found my first job, and that was an internship. Um, but what I will say is something that's really important. is to network with people because that's basically how I got my job. Classmate I had someone I was working closely with like different like little projects back in school was working in this company already, and then he was like, "Hey, we have openings. Let me go apply." And typically they also the you can you your resume and your portfolio is it's more likely to get seen if you do it this if you have this like I guess like portal in a way. Um and yeah, I mean that was how I got my job. And but yeah, like I said, it was like a year and a half and it was really hard. But in that year and a half, I was doing a lot of like little I'd say like little demo scenes. It's kind of like a tech art thing. You kind of like make like the little scene, do a lot of shader work, do a lot of like, put a model in there. I might not necessarily be the one modeling it. I maybe just like grab something from Sketchfab or something and just like put it in there and make it look great. And that I'd put that in my portfolio. Um so yeah, it's a lot of that and also a lot of game jams. I also worked with a lot of people and also met a lot of people there, and that's also like another form of networking, I'd say, um, which really helps in getting to the industry.
So, as a recently graduated person in this job market, I can tell you guys, I mean, I'm sure you know, for the people watching, it's really it's bad. It's bad right now. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. When I graduated, which was last year, I had my internship at NASA that I did until December. And since then, which is I was like, I want to learn the PBR pipeline. I want to get better at that. So I did a mentorship doing that. I also did some like freelance here and there, like a few small projects that were coming in. And then more recently, in May is when I started working on that contract indie film. So, you know, a lot of what I'm doing right now is just like trying to, like what Tim said, connect with people, stay in contact with people. Like I'm reaching out to people I either knew from the past or like making new connections. But I also think, especially if you're in school, definitely connecting with the alumni of your school. That's like a big one because your alumni, it's easier to have those conversations with them and ask for advice and stuff like that. But I'm a believer at this point and agree 100% with what Tim said. In this industry, especially right now, it is like practically impossible to just get a job from just an application. Like it happens. It happens. I'm not saying it's impossible. But having someone who can vouch for you will like raise your chances by like a huge amount. So that's what a lot of what I'm doing right now. And I've been in conversation with like some companies here and there, and a lot of the problem is just there's no head count, And a lot of it is just being patient too, and just doing projects in the meantime, I've been 6 months since my last opportunity, and right now I'm just contracting and freelancing. The goal is to get like a full-time thing, and that's what I'm working towards. But any little thing you can get is still great, still a blessing, still gives an opportunity to create more portfolio pieces, to make those connections. So that's what I've been doing right now. And if you're struggling, you know, so am I. We're working through it slowly but surely, but I do believe it's gonna get better. But it's just a big rut right now, and try to do what you can to connect with people and to just work on your portfolio.
Thank you guys. Yeah, I totally, as someone who graduated in both of those years, I graduated undergrad in 2023 and then I graduated grad school in 2025. I totally understand both the times. The job market is not that great right now. And hopefully it becomes better. But definitely like for students, you're not alone. Everyone has kind of gone through a bit of like a lull period in the job market, especially like right now with like what's been going on in the industry. But thank you guys for your advice on that. I did have another question since you guys were talking about game jams and like mentorships and stuff. What other like tools and experiences have you found beneficial to either the type of art you're doing or in general, like building your portfolio, working in the industry, etc.?
Okay, yeah, I'll go. Sorry, could you just repeat the last part about the tools and what exactly? Sorry.
Oh yeah, I was just saying like any tools or experiences that you've had, and whether that be like, similar to game jams or mentorships that you've found beneficial.
Right. Yeah, I'd say a lot of that the game jams they really help with just with like the not just from like a personal like learning standpoint, but also like yeah, like I said earlier, the networking part. You get to meet a lot of people, you get to also typically do things that you maybe normally wouldn't do. Um More specifically regarding tools though, I'd say it is important to kind of learn the software that's kind of industry standard. Um, if you're looking for to join like especially like the AAA companies are gonna look for that. Um, right, Blender is great. Blender it's used in a lot of pipelines. And there's just like so much like support for it, scripting, but Maya, I'd say like Autodesk and all that, is really important. For in the 3D pipeline, it's like being able to use the software that the industry wants. It's like very important. Same goes for Houdini, Substance Painter, especially if you're like a texture artist. I'm sure Zainab knows. Um, yeah, so like learning these software, it's really important. Um, it is expensive. It is very expensive to get like a personal license, but there are indie licenses. Like I know Maya has like an indie license, which it was like around almost like 200 to 300 a year, which is a lot of money. But I was like, I need to brush up my Maya skills in the meantime while I didn't have a job for like a year and a half. So that's what I did. So yeah.
Um, I definitely agree with the software. That's like huge. And definitely with Maya. I know Blender is like becoming very big. A lot of companies still use Maya. Like even this indie project I'm working on, we are using Maya and Renderman for the project. So Maya is super important. And Substance Painter, that's my go-to. I think some other things that I've done that have really helped. Um, Definitely going to like events. Like I was just talking to Magna about Lightbox. Going to things like that is like super helpful. Like even if it doesn't lead to like an opportunity, there's a lot of connections you can make there, and you meet so many cool people. Um, so I definitely recommend going to like networking events and stuff like that. I also think like and I mentioned this a little bit in the beginning, finding different ways that you can use your skills within the industry. Like recently, I've been experimenting a lot with like stop motion and actually finding there are stop motion companies who use digital hand painting, then 3D print that. And those are used in stop motion projects. So that's a whole nother realm that I can apply my skills. So like doing a lot of research, like where can I take this thing that I already know how to do and bring it maybe into another industry or like a sister of the industry because, the one I'm trying to get into is kind of tough. And honestly, if anything, I've discovered that like for me, like the stop motion path is so cool and I would love to experience that. So you might even learn something new about yourself. So definitely experiment and, try to keep networking.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you guys. Such great advice, especially when it comes to like that kind of software thing, because I definitely have heard that multiple times from like people who are working in the art where it's like Blender is nice, but unfortunately we still live in a time where Maya is the big beast. So, and everyone needs to learn that. Definitely. All right. So we do have, I think, around like 20-ish minutes left. So I'll finish up the last couple questions and then we'll go and see if there's any audience questions from either the Twitch chat or Discord. But my second to last question was, did working remotely anytime during your career, because I know Zainab worked, I'm not sure about Tim if you worked remotely or not, but if you did work remotely, how did it change how you approached art or like working with like within industry as a whole and like how has it changed? if that makes sense. Sorry. That was a bit me rambling.
No, you're totally good. For me, I'm actually hybrid. Well, I can be hybrid. I can work remote, but I like to be in office personally. Um, Mostly just because, like, as a tech artist, I'm supporting the artists in my team. And if the artists are also in person and in office, it's just easier for me to like help them with any kind of like technical problems they face, or stuff regarding the pipeline. It's just really easy. It's much easier to fix that way. Um, yeah, I can give like a quick example. Like you know, one of our artists is kind of like fiddling with a lot of the different characters like materials and all that. And we made tools for that. And then he realized that things weren't saving and things weren't like submitting to Perforce. And it took him like a really long while. But you know, sharing screen and all that, it makes it difficult, like going through that process and trying to help that person finish the task. But if you're in person, it just makes it much easier. But I will say though, like as a tech artist, I can work remote, like if I wanted to. A lot of the work is just like um, creating the tools for artists to work with. And also like even like the shader work, like making like a grass shader or like a snow shader and all that. Um, you don't necessarily have to be in person to do all that. So, yeah, for me, having that kind of uh what do you call this? Like the ability to go both in person and remote for the work it's really good, really nice.
So, um, I've experienced both like fully remote and like fully in person. Like, when I was at Riot, that was fully remote. NASA was fully in person, and then now I'm fully remote again. And honestly, I don't know if I have a preference. Like, I think both have their negatives and their positives. I mean, one amazing thing about remote is like, you have your own space. You get to wake up, eat something, go to work. You don't gotta commute, which is like really nice. But I also think I agree with Tim, like having that in-person contact makes it so much easier, especially with technical issues. Like I think with 3D, in my experience, there's always something going wrong. And being able to like easily communicate with like the people around you, especially tech artists, when something's wrong, is like way easier to do in person. So I honestly, I think it depends on the project and how complicated it is. If you're just doing some like simple tasks and you can do it remotely, that's perfect. But I will say, I do think in person. I know a lot of people hate on it, but I do think there are some really nice benefits to it, and hybrid is the ideal. So, yeah.
I agree with both. I don't know if I've mentioned this on stream yet, but I do work as like a game producer now. And so like for game producers, we're kind of always expected in person, and it is kind of like, oh, I have to go to work, I have to get ready and whatever. But I do agree with like what both of you are saying of like it's you have that experience of being able to like work with the people that you see on screen and then be able to solve issues pretty quickly, just by going to the desk and be like, hey, like, do you have so and so thing? Or like, do you need help with so and so thing? I'll go contact this person or whatnot. So I think there's definitely benefit, pros and cons to both things. And yeah, I do like the ideal of hybrid, and I wish I was able to do that. But I digress. But thank you guys for your answer. So our final question from that panel sheet that I've gave to you all is what advice do you have for students looking to work in games?
Okay, I'll go. It's like a staring contest. Who's
Yeah.
gonna go? Um, I think my advice, like the best thing I can offer, and something I already mentioned, but I don't ever want to tell people like, you shouldn't do this because the industry's hard, because I don't think that's fair. And if someone can do it, so can you. Um, but I also think it's about being like smart with how can you take that skill and what are other ways that you can use it? Because the truth is, it is really hard to get into the industry right now. Even like senior level people are getting laid off. So it's like, what a lot of people have resorted to doing is like, maybe they'll work like a part-time job and then they'll do something else on the side or like work on their art on the side. And the best thing like I can offer is like don't give up, keep pushing, especially if like you've worked so hard on your portfolio or your skill set to get into the industry. But try and find different ways to use it. Look into different industries. Me like going to NASA, like who would think I would go from Riot to NASA? Why would I do that? You know what I mean? But it has brought me so many opportunities, and I would have never thought like I remember when I told some of my professors, I was like, yeah, I'm going to NASA. They're like, why are you going to NASA? Like, aren't you trying to work in games? I'm like, yeah. And like, I learned a lot of new skills and I got to apply the exact same skills that I use in video games, just creating these stylized 3D models that are also animated, like in a different environment. And I was able to create something that a lot of people really liked. And it's what got me more opportunities. So, like, don't be shy of you know, putting your toes in different areas because you never know what can come out of it. Like, don't just tell yourself, I'm only gonna do games. Because a lot of people's path is not linear. You may start out in games, then you go and do this thing, and then you go and do that thing. And like, no one's path is just like, oh, in one straight line. I mean, some people are, but most people it is, like a big winding road. So just don't be afraid to try different things. Yeah.
Yeah. I totally agree with Zainab. I I immediately went into games, but for me, like as a tech artist, there were a lot of tracks still for me. Like I could have like worked in the animation industry still, and helped out with that, with like pipelines over there. But it was I was lucky to be able to work in games, like starting off at an internship, right? For an indie company, and we stuck by it, and now the indie company is like a pretty much almost double A now. So yeah, that was really great, and it turned out really great. I'd say um onto Zainab's point about diversifying and like not being afraid to, work on any like work like different kind of like a non-conventional route. I'd also say that like for the type of work you do, I think you should also diversify that, right? Or like kind of be open to uh work in different things. So I originally thought I was going to be more of a shader person, and I'd be like, working a lot with just like, oh, make the shader look cool, make like like weather effects, lots of VFX and all that. All the flashy stuff. But the thing is, as I think for we've talked about earlier, like there are a lot of jobs that people don't realize that exist, and there not a lot of people work those jobs. I'd say like, if you're on like the 3D pipeline route, um, and actually, sorry, I know someone at work who has told me about this. Like, I know Noman is like a pretty famous, like a pretty big art school here. Um, and they talk about how like being a concept artist and getting a concept art job is like really hard uh in the industry. But there's like a lot of other tracks that people don't realize that are actually not as competitive as concept art. So if you're in a 3D pipeline, character rigging is actually a really sought out skill. Um, and I think that people should be able to do that more, as someone who also rigs. Being able to do a lot and make sure that you have, like your different experiences and different like projects in your portfolio that can show like literally like the breadth of what you can do. I think that really helps when you're looking for just, opportunities in the industry.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, I definitely see what is it, kind of trying to find those spots in the industry where there's less like I guess people for in general and like being able to find those areas that are less explored amongst students and then also, being open to every single opportunity that there is. I know I kind of relate to both in the sense of like one, I went into, even though production is a pretty big field overall, I went into production at like a casino game company, which right now, like we're actively like hire trying to find more people to help out since we work with a lot of games as a whole. So I definitely see like definitely like searching, exploring and experimenting as well as like, identifying like, where may the industry may need people and where are the opportunities at. Awesome. So we do have like one audience question from the Twitch chat. So I'll go through that first and then I might ask a question because I realize we haven't talked about portfolios yet. But the audience question from one of our officers says, what are some ways that other disciplines can best support artists within the industry or within your own studio?
Sorry, could you say that again?
Oh, what are some good ways that other disciplines, such as like design, producers, or programming, engineering, can best support artists in the industry?
Um, if this question is more about like learning those other disciplines, I can definitely attest to the programming part because I do both. I do both programming and art. Kind of how I just when I introduce myself to people, and I'm just like, hey, what do you do for work? I'm a technical artist. I do both programming and art. Um, I'd say it's really important. I think the technical know-how to be able to do certain things, especially if you're just like, even if it's just like making a piece for your portfolio, being able to one, use the software, to know like how to navigate uh like the scene, making like a little animation to make your like portfolio piece pop, or like, changing like shader for like, I don't know, even just the background or your character, to make it pop more. That helps a lot, I'd say. Um, and you don't necessarily need to know how to code. There are lots of scripts online that help you like do certain tasks faster or easier, or just makes like a typical like ta like there's stuff like auto riggers online that they can quickly like rig your character so you can like pose it quick. But to be able to do that, you need like the technical know-how of like how do I make this script work in such and such software. So yeah, I'd say that's really important to know. So yeah, for me, I'd say the marriage between art and programming and all that is really important. And it opened up like a lot more opportunities for me, because as a technical artist, um, you kind of have to be a generalist. Uh, it's really good if you're able to do a lot of things. So, um, where I work, especially when we started off like as an indie company, um, I started off with shaders, lots of shaders and all that. And then I moved on to a lot of optimization, lots of optimization. So that's just like being able to like knowing how like if the game is going to run fast or slow, also just like knowing like if the artist's models are like too high poly and all that, like that's really important. um there was a lot of that. You're actually going to see a lot of that in the industry. I'm also just going to say, like, from a personal like view, I'd say that uh don't rely on stuff like Nanite too much. Like if you work in Unreal, I know it auto kind of optimizes your messages, but you should be able to, if you're a modeler, you should be able to know to like how to optimize your own meshes. For example, if you put the edge loops right so that when I do like an auto loader or whatever, it quickly just does that for you. So that's a lot of technical knowledge that I think a lot of artists should know. Um, and then yeah, after I did like optimization work, I also was doing a lot of pipeline work. Once we got a lot more artists in, and we started working with outsourcing companies and being able for and like helping create the pipeline for those outsourced artists to work in. Like yeah, so yeah, that that was a lot of like different like what do you call this, disciplines that I had to like um I guess I don't know, work in. But yeah, I think it's just really good to diversify, and programming and engineering is one of them.
Um, I 100% agree about the optimization part. Like as a 3D artist, like, and more recently, I've just been a texture artist, which means I'm already given the 3D model. And the amount of times I've had to like, look at a model, I'm like, ooh, unwrapping this is gonna be real hard. So I think definitely like how other disciplines can help artists or how artists can help other disciplines. It's like really understanding like the organization and the technical stuff. Like you don't even have to know like how to do like really, complicated technical things, but it's just understanding like, okay, keep your poly count low. I agree, do not rely on nanite. Know how to retopologize yourself. Like learn retopology. Um figuring out like correct file management. It's funny how many people don't know that, like how to label things properly, how to keep things organized. It's like simple things that obviously, when you're working on your own projects and you're just like throwing things in a folder, you're not really thinking about, oh, it's fine. No one's gonna look at it. It's just me. But when you're working with a team, you have to be conscious that these files are not just yours anymore. Like a bunch of other people are viewing them. So it's just simple things like this. Just, try to really keep things, well organized and easy for other people to use.
Yeah, plus one to the file management thing. Naming systems, naming conventions, really important, really important to follow. So being able to just, I mean, it's not really like if you're kind of freelancing and like, don't necessarily working with a team, I guess you don't have to, but like the discipline and the practice there, and also just like organizing your files, like within your Maya scenes, like making sure that everything's named correctly, it'll also just help you do your work faster, you know? So really good and really important to know. Also, as like a technical artist who has had to work with like millions of files, I would love it if my artists just like followed the naming convention. So there.
Wow, I totally agree on all fronts of like optimization and then also just naming. Even though I'm a producer and I don't deal with like hundreds of files, I still do deal with like some naming convention stuff going on with other disciplines. And I'm just like, guys, please, there's a system. We can do this. And yeah, definitely optimization is so important, especially when you're dealing with thing it helps in the long run with memory and such. And okay. So we have about 8 minutes. Jason, do we have enough time for one more question or? All right. So I'm going to ask my question, which was, what do you think is the most important thing about a portfolio, or what is the most important thing to you about your own portfolio?
Um, for me, um, one quick thing I want to say about portfolio is that if you are already working in a company, it is hard to get in stuff. Like if you, especially if you sign an NDA and like they don't want you to put the assets that you made for the company or for the game in your portfolio. That's really hard to do. And unfortunately, it's just something that you're gonna have to like know, um, like bear with, I guess. But I'd say that portfolio wise, breadth, I think, and like diversity of like what the work I can do is like the most important thing that I always like put in my portfolio is like being able to do different things. Um and to do them well is really important. I think that's just like from my standpoint, like as a generalist, like a technical artist, most of the time they're kind of generalists. Um, yeah, being showing that you can do different kinds of work really helps. Uh, so
Um, in a funny way, like my experience is like the exact opposite, where like specialty has been what has gotten me opportunities. I think it just depends on like what field you're going into. But for me, the most important thing is like quality over quantity. I feel like there are so many like student portfolios that will have like 20 pieces, but not all of them will necessarily be like relevant to what they want to do. And again, if you want to do more of like what Tim is doing, which is like tech art, or you're trying to be more of a generalist, then, you know, you go that path. But if you're trying to do like something very specific, from my experience, the more that you have, the less your chances of being taken seriously is for those specific positions, because people want to see that you can do something really well and very specifically. Um, there are people who I know who have gone hired with like three pieces in their portfolio because the pieces are so good and they're done so well and they're what the company is looking for. That's all they needed. So, from my perspective, when it comes to like art side and finding your style, it's quality over quantity, which is my value. Do a few things very well instead of like a million things mediocrely. I don't know if that's a word, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I agree. I think there is like kind of like spectrum, right, with the tech art and the more just like like the more like kind of like asset and like the concept art and all that like texture work, and even modeling. You definitely want to specialize and you definitely want to uh like show that you can do this style really well. And that's, I think, I've been in those like kind of like hiring talks, just because like they're wondering, hey, is this person fit for our team? And what I hear a lot of the times is like people being like, oh yeah, like this person is just like the best that can do like this kind of like really realistic style. We should like hire this person. And not necessarily looking for kind of a diversity in that section. But when we're looking for like the tech art stuff, it's more of the opposite. We're doing, okay, you can do a lot of different things. You can be there for when we need lots of different things, because lots of different things will come up. So yeah, I'd say there's like a spectrum there, and I definitely agree with Zainab.
Yeah, 100%. The like especially when it comes to different art disciplines, it's like variety of different like kind of needs for the portfolio where like tech art is very broad and like you kind of need to do everything. And then with environment art, it's a little bit more specialized. So you may need to like reduce down and have like the best pieces only. But yeah, thank you guys. All right, so we only have about 3 minutes left, but if you guys have anything that you want to shout out for the end, you can either shout out your socials or shout out any projects you're on. Yeah.
Hey, connect with me on LinkedIn. I am a LinkedIn user. uh LinkedIn-aholic. So, find me there. I'll be there. And Instagram, ArtStation. Yeah.
Same here. I'm on LinkedIn, try my best to, do the whole LinkedIn thing. I'd also say play FIFA 2026 on Netflix games. It's really fun and it's kind of like new for the platform, so it's interesting.
Oh, wow, and just in time for the action for the FIFA World Cup.
Yeah,
Yes. I,
World
I
Cup.
was about to
Yeah.
say World Tour, and I was like, no. All right. But thank you guys so much for joining us for this year's art panel, the special 10th anniversary art panel. And yeah, I think up next is Showcase Block B, if I'm not mistaken, Jason. Yeah. All right. But I'll see you guys later. Thank you to Zainab and Tim for joining us today and taking the time to talk to us about their art journeys. All right. See you guys later.
Bye bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.